Hello everybody, and welcome to the third installment of our mini lesson series that we'll be putting together. Today's lesson is about topographic maps, or topo maps for short. Here we've got a map of Waldoboro, Friendship, and Bristol. The first thing we're going to talk about is just kind of topo maps at a very general level. So they show kind of all the essential information that your average map would, with one big difference. And that big difference is contour lines, which we'll get into a little bit later. So the first thing you want to look at when you're looking at a topo map and starting to break it down is the key, because that'll give you a lot of pertinent information that'll make the map a little easier to read. And in particular, you want to look at the scale, because that'll let you know how measurement changes. So on this scale, on this map, the scale is 1 to 24,000, and what that means is 1 inch on this map equals 24,000 inches in real life. Another good tip when looking at a map and kind of breaking it down is to see when it was printed, when it was made. You certainly don't want to find yourself out on a multi-day hike or an adventure and have an outdated map that's inaccurate. Topo maps also show hydrography, which is a cool way of saying water and the water systems in the area. So just in this little portion of the map alone, we've got a pond up here. We've got a river running down in here. We've got some coves in here. And additionally here you can see they've marked mud. And so that's also useful to know for considering the time of day that you'll be entering a certain location during a hike or whatever it may be. Another really useful thing to consider when looking at your topo map is the colors. They will tell you a lot. So obviously the green will denote vegetation, white would be a clearing. This can be helpful to know when looking at a mountain because white will usually be a peak. And again, we talked about the mud. You can see dots, and that coloration lets you know that it's different from the normal blue, which will denote water, and just open water. So making sure that you're considering the colors and all the information that a topo map is delivering to you, just to make it as useful as possible for you. Alright, so now we're going to consider kind of the real money maker for topo maps, and those would be contour lines. For this particular portion of the mini lesson, we're going to focus on Friendship Island, because who doesn't need a little friendship right now, you know? So, we're looking at contour lines. Those are these concentric circles working their way around this particular island. They usually get tighter the closer you move in or the higher you go up in elevation, which is what we'll talk about. So what these contour lines denote is a change in elevation. On this particular map, each line that you cross, so if you were to walk from here to here, each line that you would cross denotes 10 feet of elevation. So you'd be going up 10 feet. The cool thing about contour lines is they tell us so much more than just elevation. So for instance, if you look at this portion here, as you can see, these lines are very close together. When you compare that with over here, where the lines are very spread out. In counting the lines, they cover the same amount of elevation over much different distances. And so what we can infer from that is that this portion will be much steeper than this one. You are going up the same amount of elevation in much less space than you are here. As we can see here, concentric circles, especially as they get tighter and tighter, almost always denote a peak. Here's where the elevation is raised the most, and so it has a small circle denoting that that's where it's at its peak. We can also figure out that there is some other kind of peak here. That also leads us to believe that there might be a valley or some kind of dip or depression here. We can pick all that up just by reading the contour lines, the shape of them, and their relation to each other. Okay, so because we know that contour lines can be a little bit tricky to understand, we wanted to offer an activity that helps make it a little easier to break down, that anyone could do at home. So what you want to do is you want to take half a potato, as we've got here, slice it in half. What you want to do is then cut your contour lines into your potato. And you want to try to space them out evenly. And so what each of these slices represents is that 10 feet of elevation that we were talking about when looking at the map. So what you do is you take this potato and you would trace around its edge. And what we are left with is a topographical map of Mount Potato. So what we're looking at is, this is that lower level. We've gone up 10 feet to this second level. And so that's the second thickest level of the potato. And then as you keep going up, we get to kind of that hat. And so that's the last 10 feet. We really hope that you've enjoyed this week's mini lesson about topographic maps. If you have any more questions or you would be interested in any more activities or anything along that line, feel free to reach out to the AmeriCorps team over at Midcoast Conservancy, or specifically, you can email me, which is tucker@midcoastconservancy.org. All right.